Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm going to do a book review of The Devouring Gray by Lynn Herman. So if you are at all involved in kind of the YA circles of the bookish internet, you've probably heard of The Devouring Gray. It's a huge debut novel from an American author, and I have been really excited to read it for a long time because she is like so good at promoting herself without somehow promoting herself. So I've been kind of hearing about this for a really long time, and I've been very curious about it. And when that happens, books tend to get overhyped for me, and I have had the hype kill books for me in the past. So I was really actually quite worried about this by the time my copy came in the post. However, I'm very, very delighted to say that I really enjoyed this book. So before we get started, this is going to be a spoiler-free review, and also I was sent a copy of this book by Titan Books to review, and that does not influence my opinion on the book whatsoever. The Devouring Gray takes place in upstate New York in a small town called Four Paths, and this town was founded by four people who are called the founders. And when they founded the town, they trapped a beast in kind of like an alternate version of this town called the Gray. So in the present day, we have a girl named Violet Saunders, and she and her mum are moving back to this town where her mum grew up after a really tragic accident. So Violet is, you know, the new kid in town in this teeny tiny town, and something's not quite right. And there are these three other kids who kind of are vying for her attention. It turns out that she is the descendant of one of these founders, and it turns out that these three other kids are also descendants of the founders. So we have Justin, we have Harper, and we have Isaac. As Violet and her family are moving into this town, the bodies begin to pile up, and it's very clear that something is wrong in the Four Paths. So these four teenagers have to come together despite their differences and solve this mystery. The first thing that really stands out to me about The Devouring Gray is the world building, because even though it's quite, it feels very much like Stranger Things, and I'd be very curious to know which came first, her idea or Stranger Things. It doesn't bother me at all that they are very similar, but it's very similar. So I think some people might have trouble with that. But for me, it translated really well onto the page. And we don't spend a lot of time kind of in the Gray. It really takes place in this particular town. And I love the way that she built this town up and all of its kind of culture and rituals and the people who live there. It all feels very unique. I also really liked the magic system in this book. I feel like it was kind of not as witchy as I thought it would be. I thought this was going to be a super witchy book, and it's not. It's got some shades of witchiness, but the kind of powers and magic feels very X-Men-like in nature, which I thought was really cool. I do wish that we got to see a little bit more from the magic system, because we're kind of shown what it does, but we don't really have a great idea of how everything ties together, if that makes sense. So like in books like, and this is in no way, shape, or form even closely like a Brandon Sanderson book, but in Brandon Sanderson books you really get a great sense of how the magic works, what the rules are, and I don't know if we get that from this, which is, you know, your opinion as to whether or not that's something that bothers you or not, but I really wish that we did get a little bit more of those rules, because it is really cool, and I like to learn the rules of a magic system to find out what can and can't happen in this world. The thing that really worked for me in this book, and that kind of always brings a book to life, is the characters. I thought the characters in this were really great, and I really enjoyed reading about them, although the girls kind of steal the show. We have Violet, who is the new girl in town, and I, without spoilers, really liked her kind of character arc and the way that she sort of uncovers what's going on in this town and her own heritage and all of this happening, because she has no idea when she first comes into town that any of this stuff exists. There's no indication to her that Four Paths is anything but a normal, small, sleepy town. I also really liked Harper, and I think Harper was my favorite character for a couple of reasons. She is kind of the social outcast for reasons that become apparent pretty quickly in the book, and I really like the way that she kind of had her fall from grace, because as a founder she had this kind of elevated status in in town, and then that all kind of crumbled away. So I really like the way that she sort of fights against that, and I really like the way that she's kind of adapting to her life, but I also love her unapologetic rage. She is an angry, angry, angry person, and I feel like in books, in kind of modern settings, we don't, maybe I'm reading the wrong kind of books, you tell me, but I feel like you don't see girls with that kind of rage very often, and that was something that I really, really appreciated. She's mad and she is not afraid to let you and everyone else know, and I so appreciated that about her. It gave her a really, really human quality, and she really felt like a fully fleshed out and three-dimensional character. I liked Justin and Isaac as well. They're good characters, just to me the girls really stole the spotlight. They're really, this is the book about the girls, it's not about the boys. And I think that in future books we are going to get a little bit more from them, particularly from Isaac, who I also really liked. But I do think that the people who stand out are Harper and Violet. Devouring Gray is definitely a fall book. It's definitely an autumn book. It's so incredibly atmospheric with its wonderful world building and its kind of spooky witchiness. I feel like it's the perfect book to kind of devour in October when the nights are getting longer and the leaves are changing. That would be the perfect time to read this. And although it is spring now, it's May right now, I still really, really enjoyed this. I read this in almost one sitting, which I haven't done in a really long time because I go to bed at like 10 o'clock at night. But I just blasted through this. I really enjoyed it. And I've seen some people say that maybe the first 100 pages or so are a little hard to get into, but I didn't find that to be the case at all. I was immediately gripped by this story. I gave The Devouring Gray a 4.5 out of 5 stars initially, and I'm gonna stick with that because that was kind of like my feeling coming out of the book. But I do think that, you know, I would probably rate it maybe about 4 for me now. It's a really good debut, and it is so atmospheric, and it has so many things that I love. It has angry girls, and it has powers, and it has kind of the spooky, woodsy, sleepy small town where everything is going wrong but no one wants to acknowledge it. Like, all of these things are total catnip for me, and I ended up really, really enjoying this. There's so many comparisons of this book to Stranger Things and X, so I'm gonna say if you like Stranger Things for sure, and if you like Saw Kill Girls, you're probably gonna really enjoy this. And it has some shades of Buffy in it as well, and I just thought that this was great. I really, really enjoyed this. Just a couple of really, really quick content warnings. There is familial death and grief, but the main one that I don't really see people talking about a lot is there is animal death. There is a kind of, it doesn't happen on page or anything like that, but it is kind of, it's brief, but it's something that I think would upset some people. Let's just say that. So if you want to know more about that, you want to know kind of what kind of animal and what happens, just shoot me a message and I'll let you know. That is it for this video. I would love in the comments below to hear if you have read The Devouring Gray, what you thought of it, if it's in your TBR. I think it would be really interesting to hear what other people think, because I think it's going to be a book that maybe divides people a little bit. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.